Well, welcome again to Sermons from the Living Room. So far, we have discussed three keys to meeting alone with God. The first is that we need to come to God for His glory alone. We don't come to our times with God to get some blessing. It's not a rabbit's foot. We're not trying to get good luck. We're not even doing it because we just want to build ourselves up spiritually. I mean, it has some amazing ramifications, meeting with God, learning about Him, growing in our faith. But the main reason why we meet alone with God is because we know God wants us to meet with Him. God is righteous and He always desires righteous things. And the most righteous thing of all is that He be glorified. And so we come to Him for His glory. Secondly, I got practical and said we need to meet with God in the morning. If we meet with God in the morning, well, we'll make sure we meet with Him because that'll be the first thing that we do on any given day. And then as we meet with Him, He sets our mindset for the day where it needs to be. And so we choose the morning. It's not wrong to meet with God in the afternoon. It's not wrong to meet with God at night. I just learned from the Bible that the big dogs, well, Jesus Himself, often met with the Father in the morning to start the day. And I think that's exactly the way that we need to begin our day. Then we notice that when we meet with God, we're really not initiating this thing. God Himself is the one who's initiating it. He's asking us to come and meet with Him. And when we go and meet with Him, I envision myself just hearing Him say, "Tim, come, come." And I walk down the hallway to our meeting spot, and I go exactly where He wants me to be in the place where we're going to meet. And that's what leads me to the fourth key to meeting alone with God, and that is we meet Him at a designated place. This might seem like a trivial point, but I assure you that it's not. Location matters. It's how we live life, isn't it? I mean, engaged couples search high and low for the right wedding venue. And rarely have I ever heard a wedding take place at the circus. I'm sure it's happened before, but I don't know of any weddings that have taken place in the zoo. What about the running of the bulls in Spain? That would be a great venue for a wedding, huh? No. So often we meet in a sanctuary, in a place of worship, or it's a grounds, a beautiful location, outdoors or indoors, that has been formulated for a wedding. Same thing is true for worship services. On Sunday morning, we often meet in a sanctuary, in a holy place on Sundays. Or if you're like me, I lead a church service on Saturday nights and we meet in a house. But we prepare that living room so that it looks like a place of worship. Why? Because location matters, and we want a setting that is conducive to meeting with God. The same thing is true here in our quiet times with God. It matters where we meet with Him. Now, I know God is everywhere, and we can cry out to Him anywhere we are, any time of day, and of course God is going to answer that. But what I see in the Bible is that there are often these very special places where people met with God, and they got alone with Him. Moses found his place. Exodus 34 verse 2, the Lord said to him, "Be ready in the morning and then come up on Mount Sinai." Now that's not because God wasn't down the valley. It's not because He wasn't at the riverbank. God was on the mountain in a special way. He wanted to make the top of Mount Sinai a very, very special place. And of course, it became an amazing place. It's a place where Moses did meet with God. It's a place where he received the Ten Commandments. It's a place where the fire of God came down, where God showed His glory, and where Moses had an encounter with God that forever changed his life. Mount Sinai became a very special place. In fact, Deborah wrote a song about it in which she called God, Judges 5:5, the one of Sinai. Let me ask you, where's your Sinai? Where's your mountaintop where you meet with God regularly? Do you have a designated place? I find people in the Bible often did. Jacob discovered a place like that for him, and he had several special encounters with God there. I love how Scripture describes it in Genesis 35:15. Jacob called the place where God talked with him Bethel. Bethel is the Hebrew name for that place, and we would translate it the house of God. He met God in the house of God. Do you have a Bethel? Do you have a place where you regularly meet with God? Jesus Himself demonstrated the importance of having a place where He designated to meet with His Father. In Luke 22:37, we read, each day Jesus was teaching at the temple, and each evening he went out to spend the night in the hill that was called the Mount of Olives. That was a special place where Jesus met with the Father. It's not surprising then the night in which he was betrayed, the night before the cross, that Jesus would go to that special place. Luke 22:39, Jesus went out as usual, to the Mount of Olives. Jesus had a special place where he and the Father met. Do you have a Mount of Olives, a place where you meet with God? I believe we must find such a place like that in our daily quiet times with God. For most of us, of course, that's going to be somewhere around the house. When my children were little, I used to go in the bathroom and I would lock myself in there because it seemed like the only haven of rest for me. It was a place where I could lock the door and the kids couldn't come in. But the smells weren't always so pleasing in there. The tile floor was hard and it was cold in the wintertime. Now that the kids are older, I like, if the weather's nice, to go out on the deck and meet with God. I can see creation and worship him out there. But when the weather is not as good, or when it's just dark when I get up in the morning many times, I meet with him in my living room. I meet with him right here on my couch. This is my place. This is where I like to hang out with God. And I like to do it, as I've been talking about, early in the morning before anyone else is awake. That's my time. But this is my place. The value of designating a place, I think, is at least sixfold. Probably more, but at least 6 things that are important. One, I know when I haven't been there. I think, boy, I haven't been in that room in a while. I haven't sat down on that sofa in a while. Well, that means I haven't met with my God in a while. We do this in other areas of our life. We might drive by and say, man, we haven't eaten in that restaurant in a long time. Or I might think, boy, I haven't gone to an NBA game in months. Well, the place tells you if you've been there recently or not. And my sofa tells me if I've not been here recently, then I haven't really met with God recently. Secondly, I think it's a great reminder to me that God is waiting for me there. This is called association, and we do it with other parts of our house. The fridge reminds me there's food in there, and I'm hungry and I want some. I love that appliance. Our bed shouts out to us, hey, this is a place of sleep. This is a place of rest. And of course, other messages if you're married. The deck makes me think of grilling. The basement shouts out to me that there are fun games to be played with the family. But this sofa, this spot right here, it tells me that I need to meet with God. And it's a reminder to me that God is waiting here for me every morning for me to meet with him. Thirdly, I envision as I come to the couch each day that I'm going to meet with God. As I said, I imagine him saying, come, Tim, come sit down with me for a while. Come meet with me. So as I walk there, I realize I'm going to have a meeting with a being, a real being, a person, the Godhead. And it's not some cold or ritual or sterile act like running the dishwasher or sweeping the floor or flossing our teeth. I'm having a meeting, an audience. I'm fostering a relationship with the creator God of the universe. And it's a meeting that he actually wants to have and that he's initiating. And so when I go to that place, when I go to this couch, I realize, guess what? God's already here. In fact, he's never left, and he's waiting for me to come back. Fourthly, I think when you set a place, you establish a pattern and a routine. This morning with God should be just as automatic as all the other morning routines that we have. I mean, for many of you, you get out of bed and your husband puts on your slippers and he draws you a bath and he brings you breakfast over to the tub and he sets your clothes out and he puts your toothpaste on your brush and he warms up your car and he gets you some coffee to go. Well, somewhere in that dream world is the reality of actually meeting with God daily. It should and must never be routinely boring, but it should and must always routinely happen. Fifth, like couples who have special places, this becomes my hallowed ground for meeting with God. It sets us apart. There's a reservation for two sign on this place. This is for God and me. This is our place. This is our time. And the amazing thing is that with 7 billion people on the planet, God comes here in the early hours of every morning, and he meets with me. It's mind-boggling. Sixthly and finally, because I use this couch for other things, I'm reminded that God is always there, even when we're not meeting formally or officially. In fact, every time I pass by, I can see him there. And it just reminds me, God's in the house. God's in my house. Man, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. God's got this thing. God's got this house. God's got me in the palm of his hands. The one who created the world abides in my house. So I don't need to call ADT. I got God Wash in my home. And he sits here all day, every minute, in our meeting spot. And every time I walk by this place, I'm reminded that he's here. Where's your place to meet with God? Set one up today and begin to meet God at your Sinai, at your Bethel, at your Mount of Olives, on your deck, on your couch, or wherever works best for you. Designate a spot and make it your place to meet with God every morning.